In this video, we will be talking about task settings. The following screen appears by pressing Option at each menu and pressing Task Settings. The task setting lets you to set fields, administrators, and buttons, and etc. in task units. The task name, the task type, and the task group cannot be set and just shows the task property. Now, the task custom name is like a labeling system. When the task setting is applied and when you're trying to attach a slip, it shows as a label. For instance, if you set up a task custom name field from a sales management as sales and set up the color, and try to attach a post written in this board to the quote, here is what it would look like. By heading back over to quotation, and when we try to attach a post, as you can see, it turns to that color according to the labeling. However, when we try to attach a post from other boards that have not been labeled, it will look like this. Grayed out, just like the default value. Moving on, the task setting under field settings lets you set the field types. By clicking on the editor folder's top and bottom areas and clicking add, you can add the fields to the top and bottom part of the input screen. Furthermore, if you click on a field name, you can set up various things like the display name, default settings, and etc. They are all different per field, so you need to check them out. Usually, they have field settings, default, and input control as default. By setting the display name, it changes the name of that field and shows it to whatever you have set in the input screen setting. For instance, if I switched the person in charge display name to sales person in charge, you can see that the field name has been changed. And also, the new quotation area has the field name changed as well. Next, we will be looking at the default area. By clicking on settings, it lets you decide from the four options whether to set it as default, or set a value manually, or allow it to load certain information chosen from each field, or bringing the same information left from the most recent slip. The auto change automatically changes the value upon saving the slip. The auto change automatically switches up the value when another field is entered. The autofill value on save changes the value upon saving the slip. As for the autofill value on save, you may choose the load property option, which automatically loads the default value or the value set in auto change. As an example, I'm going to take a look at the person in charge field. For the default value, I'm going to set it. I'm going to select the person in charge, set by default at the slip entry settings. Next, I'm going to set the auto change settings so that it loads the customer pick code. And lastly, for the autofill value on save, I'm going to keep existing value. Now, once the setting is complete, you can see that the sales pick has been automatically entered as John. By clicking on the personal function settings, it did follow the settings applied. However, when we enter the customer, it automatically switches to the customer pick like we said. And when we decide to save this quotation after inputting the values, when we go back to modify it, as you can see, the sales pick has remained the same value. Going back to the field settings, we will be looking at the different types. First is the number types. The number types lets you make a formula. You can set it up so that the formula lets you add the pre-tax amount and the tax amount. Now, let us go to amount 1, click Auto Change Settings, and set up a formula by clicking Load Information. Make sure to add the pre-tax amount, change it to plus, and load information, and change it to tax. Apply and save. Once that's done, make sure to go to the input screen setting, new quotation, and by clicking settings, you have to add the field or the amount field that you added. Apply and save. Now, as you can see, when you enter the quantity, the price, the pre-tax amount, and the tax amount add up to the formula that we have set. Next is the date format. When we click on the additional date type, you can set it up so that the quoted date plus 7 days. So go to Auto Change Settings, select Formula, and use a time-based tool. Make sure to press 7 days after. As for the target item, click the quote date. Apply and save. As you can see, when you enter the input screen of a new quotation, the added date type automatically adds the 7 days. As for the text type, you can decide what shows up in that field. By clicking Autofill Value on Save and clicking on Formula, you can choose what represents in that field. For instance, I will choose the person in charge, add field, put a slash, add a customer name. I will add it like so. Apply and save. Nothing is shown initially at the text type. However, when we save the value and take a look at the slip again, we can see that the text type has the information field like we have set it. As for the bottom field settings, if you go to Remarks and set the copy previous row, and to set it to manually and use, by saving, when you enter the remarks, it copies. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the input control for the requirement status. And if you decide that the requirement status is required for customer, and when you try to save the slip without entering the customer, it will not save. Now going back, if you set up the editability settings to non-editable and save, when you try to edit the remarks, you can't. For fields like customer, sales, and location, the requirement status and editability are separated into code and name. For instance, if you set up the requirement settings for code to not required and set up the name to required, you can enter the field name, but it is not required to enter a customer code. You can save the slip. Lastly, we're going to take a look at the valid transaction check. By clicking Settings, select the valid transaction check. Now by clicking Option and Edit Property, you can switch up the property name and the attribute description. You can switch it up to your desire. You can write in something like this. As you can see, the values have been changed. As default, it is always like this. However, you must add an exception. Add the exception condition name. I'm going to set it up so that it is non-taxable. It won't save. So make sure to load the information of transaction type and set it to non-taxable and the result to batch. As you can see, when I try to change it to a non-taxable and try to save, it won't save. As for the show message, by trying to save again, the notification also pops up, but the save option is available. Now the exception setup condition can be applied to default, auto, autofill, and requirement, and editability as well. Now we will be taking a look at the top progress status. Here you can set up the progress settings, the default status and confirmation, and list tab settings. For the progress status settings, you can select or add new progress statuses or delete or deactivate unused progress statuses, or even switch up the order. The default status and confirmation settings lets you decide the status of the slip when it is confirmed. So once it switches by getting it to confirmed status, it will be saved as in progress. Lastly, for the list tab settings, you can switch up the order like so, or hide unused fields. When we go back, we can see the hidden list tab and the switched up order. You can also set up a number setting. So by default, you can decide whether to use the auto generation feature or even set up the number generation criteria to your needs. As you can see, you can set up a lot of things in the field settings. But remember, just because you added a field to the field settings doesn't mean it's applied to the input screen setting. You have to make sure to add the field to the input screen setting as well. The field group settings allow you to group the fields. By right-clicking and adding a field group, you can add from the Exclude tab. I will be adding the 3 date types and save. Now, if you go back to the input screen, when you click on it, you can see the added fields as well. Furthermore, if you want to set it up per input screen settings, click on the desired template and set up the group fields to set manually. Next is the administrator settings. It allows you to designate a user who can configure the overall task settings by setting it up or set up a task administrator group. Next one is the button settings. You can decide the bottom, middle buttons. When you click on them, you can drag around to move the order, or click on it to modify the name. If you do not want to use certain items, you can put it to button not in use. The valid transaction check works similarly to the validity check that we did earlier. We're going to set another example. Click on Add Exception. Enter the name as usual. We're going to add a condition and keep it at end. Now we're going to load the location information and select the location name and set it to OEM, or your preferred location. And the next one will be total quantity and less than 0. Set it to cannot save. This means that if it's an OEM location with a value less than 0, it will not save. Now, when we look at the location out and the quantity, and when we try to save it, it will not work. Now lastly, if you deactivate the e-approval button, then it hides all the approval related buttons and features. As you can see, the e-approval is no longer visible, and the save function for e-approval is deactivated as well. And when we try to attach a slip, it is not visible here as well when you're trying to compose a draft for the e-approval. Now if you deactivate the unconfirmed and confirmed, the settings have been applied and there's no difference between unconfirmed and confirmed, since the differentiating factor is removed between unconfirmed and confirmed. As you can see, the slips with the progress status of unconfirmed are no longer visible, and you must turn it back on. And only by reactivating it can you see the unconfirmed. And all of them have been reverted back. As for the code detail info, you can have multiple information that you want to pop up when you enter either a customer or item. Now I'm going to set it so that the customer vendor is to use. Click on Use and press Settings. Here you can choose what to add or hide. When you save the information and go to New Quotation, this field pops up, and when you enter the customer, the related information pops up as well. Lastly, when you use the hold function, you have to make sure that it is added in the button settings. It is usually hidden. Make sure that it is not in use and it is in use. Make sure to do that for middle and bottom buttons as well. Now, by pressing the hold button, you can enter a title and decide to come back to it later. And once you do, make sure to press the hold button and apply it. Please note that the hold slips will not be saved forever. So after 1 week, the held slips will be deleted